The observation deck of the UES Harmony fell silent as Ambassador Tae-won Kim extended his hand toward the towering figure of the Xeraxian diplomat. History was being made in Earth year 2189.
On behalf of Earth, we welcome this new era of cooperation, Kim said, his voice steady despite the weight of the moment. The Xeraxian, with skin like polished obsidian, extended 3 finger tendrils that wrapped gently around Kim's hand. The Xeraxian Confederacy acknowledges your greeting and reciprocates your desire for mutual prosperity.
Kim felt a chill run down his spine, though he attributed it to the excitement of first contact rather than any premonition.
Behind him, the Earth delegation broke into applause, their faces beaming with hope for the future.
Within months, cultural exchanges flourished.
Humans learned the complex tonal language of the Xeraxians, while the aliens seemed particularly fascinated by Earth music and art.
Joint settlement plans were approved for 3 border worlds, New Eden, Harmony Point, and Frontier's Edge. Captain Jiho Park supervised the establishment of New Eden, the largest human colony.
"We're making history here," he told the 12,000 settlers as they disembarked from the colony ships. "Our children will remember this as the beginning of humanity's golden age among the stars."
The settlers worked tirelessly to build their new home.
They constructed habitation domes, planted earth crops in specially prepared soil, and established regular communication with the small Xeraxian settlement just beyond the eastern ridge. Children played in the artificial gravity zones while scientists conducted research on adapting to their new world. Dr. Hyejin Choi, New Eden's chief xenobiologist, noticed something odd about the Xeraxian behavior patterns. "They ask many questions about our defense systems and population centers," she told Park over dinner one evening.
"But they share very little about themselves."
Park promised to look into her concerns, but diplomatic protocols made it difficult to raise such sensitive issues without evidence. The colony continued to grow, with new arrivals each month bringing the population close to 15,000 by the 6-month mark.
6 months after founding, Park was recording his daily log when the proximity alarms blared.
At first, he thought it might be a malfunction, the system had been glitchy during the last solar flare. Then the communications officer burst into his office, face pale.
"Massive Xeraxian fleet just dropped out of FTL, sir. They're surrounding the colony."
Park rushed to the command center. On the screens, he could see dozens of Xeraxian warships, ships they had never revealed to humanity, descending toward New Eden and the other human settlements.
"Open a channel," Park ordered. "This must be a misunderstanding."
The communications officer tried repeatedly, but received no response. Then the first energy weapons fired, targeting the colony's power grid and communication arrays.
"Evacuate the civilians to the emergency shelters," Park shouted over the growing chaos. He activated the emergency beacon, knowing their defenses wouldn't last long against such overwhelming force. "This is New Eden to Earth Command, we are under attack. Massive Xeraxian fleet, they're targeting civilian structures first. This isn't a misunderstanding."
His voice grew desperate as screams echoed behind him.
"They're killing everyone. This isn't war, it's extermination."
Dr. Choi managed to reach the command center, blood streaming from a cut on her forehead.
"The Xeraxian settlement is empty," she gasped. "They evacuated days ago. They knew this was coming."
Outside, the slaughter continued. Xeraxian ground forces moved methodically through the streets, entering homes and public buildings, leaving no survivors. Park ordered the few security personnel to protect the children's shelter, but reports soon came in that similar attacks were happening at every human settlement on the planet. His final transmission cut off mid-sentence as the command center's roof collapsed.
Similar scenes played out across all 43 human colonies. Within 7 hours, 11 billion human lives were snuffed out in a coordinated genocide.
Only the research vessel Pathfinder survived, hidden deep within the magnetic field of a gas giant where it had been conducting atmospheric studies.
The crew watched in horror through their long-range sensors as their civilization was systematically erased.
"We have to get back to Earth," Captain Min-Soo Lee whispered, tears streaming down his face as he watched the destruction.
"They have to know what happened here."
The Pathfinder waited until the Xeraxian fleet departed, then made a dangerous blind jump to escape the system. 3 weeks later, they reached Earth space, carrying the evidence of what would become known as the 7-hour genocide and igniting humanity's terrible response. The images of destruction played on screens around the world.
Earth stood still.
People gathered in city squares, in homes, in offices, all watching the same footage from the Pathfinder.
The 7-hour genocide was all anyone could talk about. 11 billion lives erased in less than a day. For 3 days, the planet observed official mourning. Memorial services were held in every city. On the 4th day, the United Earth Defense Council gathered in their underground chamber in Geneva.
3 days of global mourning will not be enough, Director Sun-Hai Lee said, her voice breaking as she addressed the assembled leaders.
But after mourning must come action. The emergency session had been running for 18 hours straight. Dark circles marked the eyes of every person present. Coffee cups and food wrappers littered the table.
No one had slept properly since the news arrived. Admiral Eun Jae-kong stood up suddenly. He was a tall man with closely cropped gray hair who rarely showed emotion. Today, his hands shook as he pushed away from the table and pointed at the holographic display showing the devastation.
"The Zyraxians expect us to collapse in grief," he said.
"They believe we're too fragile, too civilized, to respond with appropriate force. Our intelligence suggests they've done this before, to at least 3 other species."
The room fell silent as the implications settled. General Uneseo Park was the first to speak. 3 other species? You mean? Extinction events, confirmed Admiral Kong. The crew of the Pathfinder managed to download partial records from a Zyraxian database before escaping.
The Athosians, the Pelnari, the Vordesh, all spacefaring civilizations.
All contacted by the Zyraxians.
All supposedly extinct.
Why? Asked Defense Minister Kyun Soon Choi. What do they gain? Dr. Ji-min Ri, head of xenobiology, cleared her throat. Resource acquisition, primarily.
Each genocide was followed by complete colonization of the victims' worlds. The Zyraxians appear to view other sentient species as competition to be eliminated, not as potential allies. Minister Choi slammed his fist on the table.
Then we strike back immediately. We have ships. Not enough, interrupted Admiral Kong. Not yet.
The Zyraxians outmatch our known fleet strength by at least 5 to 1. Known strength being the key phrase, said Director Lee quietly. She pressed a button, and new schematics appeared in the holographic display.
We've maintained a classified fleet development program for the past decade. Project Cerberus was designed as a last resort defense against potential hostile first contact.
Murmurs filled the room as the council members studied the designs of ships and weapons systems they hadn't known existed.
Why weren't we informed? Demanded Minister Choi. Plausible deniability, Director Lee replied. The Zyraxians likely have spies on Earth.
We needed them to believe our defensive capabilities were limited to what we publicly displayed. Secretary General Jean Woo-song had remained silent throughout the exchange. At 72, he was the oldest person in the room, a veteran diplomat who had dedicated his life to peaceful expansion into space. Now he stood slowly, his movements deliberate. All my life, he said quietly, I believed that civilization is what separates us from animals.
I've advocated restraint, dialogue, and compassion. He looked around the room, his eyes hard.
But they've slaughtered our children.
Our future. So now, we stop being civilized. Humanity will not be the 4th extinction.
He turned to Admiral Kong.
What resources do you need?
Everything, Kong replied simply. Every ship, every soldier, every scientist, every factory.
This isn't a police action or a limited engagement. This is survival.
Secretary General Song nodded.
Then you shall have it all. He faced the council again.
I propose activating the Phoenix Protocol.
The Phoenix Protocol was theoretical and all-out mobilization of Earth's resources toward a single military objective, with civilian needs secondary. It had never been implemented, not even during Earth's darkest conflicts. The vote must be unanimous, reminded Director Lee. The consequences are too severe otherwise. Secretary General Song looked at each council member in turn.
If we fail to act decisively, our species dies. The Zyraxians will return to finish what they started.
We either fight with everything we have, or we prepare for extinction.
One by one, the council members voiced their agreement. The Phoenix Protocol is now in effect, announced Secretary General Song.
Admiral Kong, you will lead the military response. Director Lee, civilian coordination.
General Park, intelligence operations. As the meeting adjourned, Admiral Kong approached Secretary General Song. The Retribution fleet will be ready within 3 months. But there's one more thing, we found survivors among the Athosians and other species supposedly exterminated.
Small groups hiding in remote locations. If we can locate them. Find them, Song said firmly. We'll need every ally we can get. That night, factories worldwide began retooling for war production.
The Phoenix had risen, and it would burn with vengeance. The Zyraxian commander at Proxima Centauri watched his display with mild interest as the human fleet approached. His name was untranslatable in human language, but his rank marked him as a subjugator 3rd class, a position earned after successfully cleansing a minor Vordesh outpost years ago. Primitive vessels approaching, his sensor officer reported.
Matching known human military signatures.
How many? The commander asked, his 3-fingered hand tapping a rhythm on his command chair.
23 ships, subjugator.
Their weapons systems appear to be the same basic plasma technology we observed in their defense of the colony worlds. The commander made a sound that approximated laughter in his species.
Prepare battle formation 6. We will eliminate them quickly and continue our advance toward their homeworld. The 30 Zyraxian warships moved into an arrowhead formation, their black hulls absorbing the light from Proxima Centauri.
Their intelligence had been clear, humans had only basic weapons technology, nothing that could threaten their shields. Major Dae Hyuncho stood on the bridge of the stealth destroyer Vengeance, his face illuminated by the tactical display. Unlike the other vessels in the human fleet, the Vengeance was invisible to Zyraxian sensors, cloaked by technology that had never been revealed during the brief period of diplomatic relations.
All ships in position, his executive officer reported. Quantum missile batteries charged. Cho nodded. Begin the attack. The human fleet suddenly changed formation, splitting into 3 groups that the Zyraxian battle computers struggled to track.
Then, from the Vengeance and 5 other previously hidden vessels, the first wave of quantum missiles launched.
These were not the simple plasma weapons the Zyraxians expected.
The quantum missiles existed in multiple states simultaneously until impact, making them impossible to track or intercept.
The first volley tore through the Zyraxian defense grid like paper.
What is happening? The Zyraxian commander demanded as 3 of his ships exploded.
Unknown weapons technology, his sensor officer cried.
They're penetrating our shields without triggering defensive systems. On the Vengeance, Major Cho watched with grim satisfaction.
Second wave, fire. Target their command ship but do not destroy it. Disable only. The quantum missiles struck with surgical precision, destroying the Zyraxian command ship's engines and weapons but leaving the central hull intact. Breach team, deploy, Cho ordered through his comm system.
Lieutenant Hajun Kim led his special forces unit from their drop ship toward the damaged Zyraxian vessel. His 12 soldiers wore advanced combat suits that rendered them nearly invisible against the backdrop of space. Remember, we need their communications systems intact, Kim reminded his team as they placed breaching charges on the outer hull.
And we need prisoners. The charges blew silently in the vacuum of space, opening a path into the Zyraxian ship. Kim was the first through, his weapon at the ready.
Inside, chaos reigned. Zyraxian crew members moved frantically, many seeming disoriented without orders from their commander.
Kim's team moved efficiently through the corridors, stunning any Zyraxians they encountered. Something's not right, Sergeant Bo Mi-yoon whispered as they approached the central command area. They're not coordinating their defense. It's like they don't know we're here until we're right on top of them. Kim nodded. Keep moving. We need to reach their communications hub. 3 hours later, after securing the command ship, Kim made his report to Major Cho. Command, we've found something. They coordinate through a semi-telepathic network. It's their strength, but it could be their weakness. The data retrieved from the Zeraxian ship was transmitted back to Earth immediately. Dr. Mireille Park, leading the Xenobiology Division at Earth Defense Command, reviewed the findings with growing excitement. This explains their efficiency during the genocide, she told her team. They don't communicate like we do. They share thoughts directly through a biological network that spans their entire species. Park worked without rest for 6 days, analyzing the captured Zeraxian equipment and biological samples. On the 7th day, she requested a meeting with Admiral Kong. The Zeraxians have evolved without individual thought, she explained, displaying diagrams of their neural structure. Their strength comes from perfect coordination. Each Zeraxian is like a cell in a larger organism. And how does this help us? Admiral Kong asked. Park smiled thinly. We don't need to kill them all, she explained. We just need to break their unified consciousness. A species that's never experienced true isolation won't know how to function when suddenly alone. Her team had developed a device that could disrupt the Zeraxian hivemind network, a sundering weapon that would break their telepathic connections, forcing each Zeraxian to exist as an individual for the first time. The effect would be psychologically devastating, Park continued. Imagine suddenly losing your sense of self, your connection to everything that defines you. Admiral Kong frowned. This borders on psychological warfare beyond conventional ethics. They killed 11 billion of us, Park said quietly. Ethics didn't concern them. After 3 days of debate, the sundering strategy was authorized despite ethical concerns from some commanders. The first devices were deployed to Major Cho's fleet at Proxima Centauri for testing. The next Zeraxian fleet that arrived found not just a human force waiting, but a weapon that would change the nature of their species forever. 6 months into the war, the message arrived on all Earth military channels. The Zeraxian Supreme Coordinator, speaking in perfect English, requested immediate peace talks. His black eyes showed no emotion as he spoke. The misunderstanding between our species has led to regrettable actions. We propose an immediate cessation of hostilities and diplomatic negotiations. Admiral Kong played the message 3 times before showing it to the Earth Defense Council. They acknowledged receipt but sent no reply. Earth forces continued their advance into Zeraxian territory. The war had changed dramatically since the first battle at Proxima Centauri. Humanity had moved from defense to offense, pushing deep into enemy space. The sundering devices had proven more effective than anyone expected. Wherever they were deployed, Zeraxian forces fell into disarray, unable to coordinate without their hivemind connection. In the captured Zeraxian space station that now served as forward base nemesis, Lieutenant Minho Choi sat before a wall of screens. The station hung in orbit around what had once been a major Zeraxian military hub. Now it served as humanity's forward command post. Choi monitored the Nemesis AI system as it systematically dismantled Zeraxian communication networks, isolating their fleet segments from one another. The AI had been designed specifically to counter Zeraxian technology, adapting faster than their engineers could respond. Lieutenant, report, Commander Yunha Ryu said as she entered the control room. She had been awake for 30 hours straight, but her uniform remained crisp and her eyes alert. They're panicking, Choi reported, pointing to the movement patterns on his main screen. We're detecting unusual communication patterns and mass movements toward their core worlds. 3 major fleet groups have abandoned their positions at the outer colonies. Commander Ryu studied the display. They're pulling back to protect their homeworld. They finally understand they're losing. Yes, ma'am. And there's more. Choi brought up another screen showing fragmented communications they'd intercepted. We're seeing evidence of disagreement among their leadership. Some are questioning the decision to attack Earth in the first place. This was unprecedented. The Zeraxian hivemind typically prevented any internal discord. The sundering was working even better than expected, breaking not just their tactical coordination but their societal unanimity. Meanwhile, on the edge of Zeraxian territory, Captain Sujin Yun led a very different mission.
Her small stealth ship, the Shadow Runner, had been tracking unusual energy signatures when they discovered something no one expected: a Xeraxian research station with human life signs. "Breach team ready," her second-in-command reported as they prepared to board the station. Captain Yoon nodded, checking her weapon one last time.
"Remember, recovery of survivors is priority 1. We take Xeraxian prisoners only if they surrender immediately." The boarding went smoothly, too smoothly.
Most of the Xeraxian researchers had already fled, leaving only a skeleton crew that surrendered without resistance. What they found inside haunted even the most hardened soldiers. Humans from the colonies, kept in small cells. Some had been there since the genocide 6 months earlier. The Xeraxians had been experimenting on them, testing biological weapons, studying psychological breaking points, measuring human resilience. "Get medical teams in here now," Yoon ordered, her voice tight with controlled rage as she helped an emaciated woman from her cell.
"And tell Admiral Kong what we've found."
Over the next 3 days, they discovered similar facilities at 4 other locations. In total, they rescued just over 4,000 survivors, a tiny fraction of the 11 billion killed, but each life saved felt like a small victory against the darkness.
They were keeping detailed records, Yoon reported to Admiral Kong via secure transmission.
The experiments were designed to find the most efficient ways to eliminate us completely when they reached Earth.
They were planning a second genocide. The news of the rescued colonists spread through the human fleet like wildfire, renewing their determination. But something unexpected was also happening throughout Xeraxian territory. "Admiral, we're picking up unusual transmissions from within their space," reported Intelligence Officer Jae-in-koo.
"It appears that other species, ones we thought were completely wiped out by the Xeraxians, have surviving populations that have been in hiding.
They're rising up now, attacking Xeraxian outposts from within."
The Athosians, tall beings with iridescent skin who had reportedly been wiped out 30 years earlier, had maintained hidden colonies in asteroid belts.
The Pelnari, a species of brilliant engineers, had preserved their civilization in underground cities. The Vordesh, masters of biological adaptation, had survived in small numbers by altering their physiology to appear as non-sentient creatures. All of them had been watching, waiting.
Now, with the Xeraxians weakened by humanity's counterattack, they emerged from hiding to reclaim their worlds. "The empire the Xeraxians built through fear and genocide is collapsing from within," Admiral Kong told the Earth Defense Council.
"We didn't just save ourselves, we may have liberated the galaxy."
As human forces pushed closer to the Xeraxian homeworld, a new alliance was forming among the survivors of their previous atrocities. The tide had turned, not just for humanity, but for all victims of the Xeraxian Confederacy. Cas Taylor hung like a jewel against the blackness of space, its swirling blue atmosphere belying the tension that gripped the planet.
The Xeraxian homeworld had never faced an enemy at its doorstep before.
Now, over 800 human ships surrounded it, weapons primed.
Admiral Eun Jae-kong stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution, the massive flagship of Earth's combined fleet.
He stared at the planet on the viewscreen, thinking of the 11 billion human lives that had been snuffed out in the 7-hour genocide. His hand hovered over the communications panel.
"Are the sundering devices ready?" he asked his weapons officer.
"Yes, sir. Full planetary coverage. And the quantum missile batteries are armed."
Kong nodded. "Open a channel to their leadership."
The face that appeared on screen was not what he expected. Unlike the military commanders they had faced throughout the war, this Xeraxian appeared older, with paler skin and eyes that seemed to hold something the others had lacked: regret.
"I am Admiral Kong of Earth." "To whom am I speaking?" "I am Coordinator Carix. I represent a new voice among our people." Kang's expression remained hard. "You have 6 hours to surrender unconditionally," he transmitted. "After that, we implement the Phoenix Protocol in full." Both knew what that meant. The Phoenix Protocol authorized the complete destruction of the Xeraxian civilization.
Not just military targets, but cultural centers, historical sites, civilian areas, everything.
"We understand," Carix replied. "There is much you do not know, Admiral.
The military junta that ordered the attack on your colonies, they do not speak for all Xeraxians. Some of us opposed the genocide but were silenced. The sundering devices you used in battle have had an unexpected effect, they freed many of us from the control of the hive mind.
Kang's eyes narrowed. You expect me to believe that now, at the point of defeat? I expect nothing. I only offer truth. Give us the 6 hours. We will provide your terms.
4 hours later, news came: the military junta that had ordered the genocide had been overthrown from within. Xyraxians who had been freed from the hive mind's absolute control by the sundering technology had staged a coup, arresting those responsible for the genocide.
2 weeks later, in the courtroom aboard the Earth diplomatic vessel Justice, the Galactic Tribunal for War Crimes convened.
Representatives from 7 species attended, including the newly liberated Athosians, Palnari, and Vordesh. Previous victims of Xyraxian aggression who had survived in small hidden enclaves. The Xyraxian defendants sat in a special chamber, still affected by a localized sundering field that prevented them from reconnecting to their hive mind.
They appeared disoriented, stripped of the constant mental connection that had defined their existence.
General Jason Park, who had lost his entire family in the New Eden massacre, stood before the tribunal.
He had been chosen to deliver Earth's statement on the final judgment.
We had the capability and the justification to eradicate the Xyraxian species, he said, his voice steady despite the emotion behind his words.
Our fleet was positioned to destroy their homeworld. Our weapons were armed.
Our hearts were filled with righteous anger.
He looked directly at the Xyraxian defendants. That we chose not to defines us. Justice does not demand extinction, it demands accountability and change.
The Terran Protectorate we establish today will ensure that no species ever again faces extinction at the hands of another. The terms of the peace were severe but not genocidal.
The Xyraxian military was disbanded.
Their colonies were placed under supervision.
Those directly responsible for the genocide would face punishment.
But most importantly, the sundering technology would be permanently installed on their homeworld, modified to allow healthy individual thought while preventing the kind of hive mind control that had led to their aggressive expansion.
Coordinator Carrix, now leading the new Xyraxian government, agreed to the terms. We must learn to be individuals with conscience, not parts of a whole without morality, he said. It will be difficult, but necessary. After the official proceedings concluded, an Athosian delegate approached Earth's new ambassador Seojin Kwan.
The tall, iridescent-skinned being towered over the human but bowed deeply in respect. There is a phrase spreading among the stars now, the alien said in careful standard English.
Do not provoke the humans.
They have the power to destroy but choose to protect instead.
That is true strength. Ambassador Kwan smiled sadly. We learned the cost of war long before we reached the stars.
Perhaps that knowledge saved us all in the end.
1 year later, Admiral Khan returned to New Eden.
The colony was being rebuilt, this time with representatives from all the species of the new alliance. Where once there had been only human structures, now diverse architectures rose side by side. He stood at the memorial site where Captain Jiho Park had made his final transmission. A simple stone marker bore the names of all who had died in the genocide.
Kong placed his hand on the stone. We remembered, he said quietly. And we did not become monsters to defeat monsters. That was our victory.
In the sky above, ships from a dozen worlds moved peacefully through space, the first patrol of the Terran Protectorate ensuring that genocide would never again go unanswered.